Hi everybody, and welcome back to Sew Along with Jan and the November, can you believe it, November Kimberbell Mini Quilt. So this one's going to be really fun, I think. It's got a couple of blocks that have quite a lot of applique. This one does too, but it's not as intense. So there's only 4 blocks in this little quilt. Really neat color choices. So I decided to do it that way because I think it's kind of neat. It's different. Normally in the fall, we see rusts and reds and oranges and stuff like that. And I thought the grays were really kind of pretty. So we're going to do it in those colors. Let's talk a little bit about the fabrics. So let's see here. Let's turn the page and we'll talk about the fabric. Sorry, I'm going to have to clear my throat. Let's talk about the thread first. We don't need too many threads. There's only about 5 colors in it. And white is one of them. There's 2 grays. There's a lighter gray and a darker gray. So I did pearl gray 1157 and sky or gray sky 1156. So they're kind of, and I just matched my fabric. Again, this is how I do all of these. Just take your fabrics and match your fabrics to get your thread colors. And then there's a burgundy color. So I have this, it's called Very Red. And that is 1198. And these are the brother colors, just so you know. And then I had a kind of a goldish color, and this is Harvest Gold. So we're going to use Harvest Gold 206. So there's only a few colors, and then the white. And I've got the white in the machine because we're going to start out with that with the quilting. So, okay, so you need your thread. So just take your fabrics. So like when I show you my fabrics here, we're going to talk about that next. So here's my fabrics. Turn the page here. This series will probably be 3 videos because we can do a couple of blocks in this video and a couple of blocks in the next video. Okay, so when I looked at my colors here, a second, I got to get this pulled over so you can see it. When I looked at my colors, there's a couple of different white kind of tone on tones I thought would be nice. So I picked 2 tone on tones. This one has kind of leaves on it. And then I think the other one has more of a flower, just a teeny little flower. They're very tone on tone. So I had 2 whites for the backgrounds. The picture looked kind of green here for the leaves, but it actually is gray in the pictures. So I picked a real pale gray. Let me see where my pale gray is here. Not sure which. Oh, here we go. So it's very pale gray. It's kind of a silvery gray. And then there was a darker gray. So I had a darker gray like this. Thought that looked nice. And then a burgundy, and my burgundy does have a little bit of a speck in it, but I thought, that might be kind of pretty in the leaves. It's mostly for the leaves. And then my gold. So my gold has a little bit of a print too. It just has like a little speckle in it. So I've got that. So what I did then is I cut my pieces from here. It told me how big to cut my pieces, and these are all scraps. You don't have to buy, like they'll say you need a half yard here and a fat eighth here and a fabric scrap. I just completely cut out a scrap. So this is all scraps. So you need, so then what I did is I cut everything out, laid them in my piles, the first fabric, second fabric, and so on. And then I put them in piles of the blocks they went to. So like this is the thanks block. This is the pieces I need for that. The harvest block. I think that's the first one we're going to do, is maybe that one. And pumpkin block, so it had a whole bunch of little pieces for the leaves and stuff in it, okay? And the gourd block. So what I did then is I went through and looked at all of the instructions on the actual blocks then, and it told me what I needed to put shape flex on. So if you just go through and look at your blocks, it'll tell you like right up here at the top kind of where you need to put shape flex. So like the first one, you put it on all the fabric. And some of these, I don't know that you would have had to, just because the background is light colored, but I just did as they said. And then we also need, of course, our backing fabric. So I've got my backing fabric here. I'm going to do a gray, and then I cut my sleeve. So that, remember, we're going to put the little sleeve on the back, and that's 12 by 6 for that piece. And I am going to put shape flex on the back of my backing also. I forgot to do that last night, so I'll do that before we put it together. And then I have my binding, and here's my binding in this darker gray. And you need, they call for 2.5 inch binding, and I always cut mine at 2 1/4. So do whichever works best for you, but I have 2 1/4 inch binding. So you didn't need a lot of fabric for this. And again, I just cut out of scraps. I kind of just go through my scrap boxes and figure out what'll work, and I got all my fabric out of there. You're also going to need in your embellishment kit that little piece of, that cool piece of like plaid, I think it's felt. Yeah, I think it's called, they call it felt, plaid felt. So I thought that was kind of neat. So that's what we're going to use for the pumpkins and stuff. That's a piece of felt. All right, and I think that's about it. You're going to need, let's see, I think that's it for that. I didn't cut my felt down. I'm just going to hold it up. You can cut it if you want to. It tells you how big to cut it here on page 5 if you want to. I didn't cut mine. You need your batting, of course. I'm using Hobbs 80/20, and I've just got chunks of batting. I don't like to cut my batting. And then we're going to go on and we're going to start a block. So let's start, we're going to start with the Harvest block here. Now, I do not have the quilting designs that they call for in the instructions. So I use different ones, and I just used some that I had, and I thought they looked cool, so I thought we would just use those. So if you have the ones that it calls for, go ahead and use those. It does tell you which ones they are in option 1. Okay, so now I also wanted to talk a little bit about these. All of these blocks are going to end up being 6.5 by 6.5. So if you happen to have the smaller machine, like a 6 by 10 hoop, you will need, you can get around that. And I have a video that I'm going to put in the description below so that you can, if you have a little software, you just need some basic software. And in the quilting design, if you would take out steps 3 and 4, those are the 6.5 inch sizes. You can actually still do this by removing those, and then you would be able to get the block in to your hoop, because it would only be 6 by 6, and most of the 6 by 10 machines that Brother has actually are 6 1/4 by 10 1/4. So you would be able to do that. Okay, so I have that video. I did it with the Let Freedom Ring. Is it Let Freedom Ring? No, Let Freedom Ring. It was the Patriotic Pillow. I did it with that. So I'm gonna link it in this description below. And then also the software that I would recommend, if you don't want to spend a lot of money on software and you just need to do some very basic editing like this, Dime has a great little piece of software called Embroidery Toolshed Plus, and it's like very reasonable, like $129 or something like that, $129.99 or something like that. It's up on our Shield Sewing Center website, and I will also link that in the description below, because then you can do editing. I mean, you just need some simple editing tools. And I showed the video in my Perfect Embroidery Pro, which is the Dime full software, but you would be able to also do it in that Embroidery Toolshed Plus version of the software. And all you need to do is remove 2 lines, and it will fit in your 6 by 10 hoop. So that's a good way to get around having a little smaller hoop. If you get a little software, really helps, because I did that for a long time, because I had a 5 by 7 hoop for a long time, and I got around it by using software. So okay, so let's start with the Harvest block. So the first block, we're going to do the Harvest block in this video and the Gourd block. So the Harvest block, let's see, called for the Stars 7 quilting design, and I don't have that one, so I'm going to use, I just picked one. I thought, well, this is kind of a neat one I've never used. It's called Geometric 7. And let's see, I need my, let's see, I got to get the Harvest, my little bundle of fabrics here. Let's see, Harvest. Here it is. It's this one with the turkey. So we're going to do the turkey first. Okay. Got my chunks of batting up there. I don't cut my batting. Now, if you like to cut your batting to the size, you still have to trim it. It is in the instructions for the quilting, so you can print off those instructions. They come with all the quilting designs, and remember, the quilting designs are separate. They don't come with the mini quilts. You do have to buy those separate, but just use whatever you have. If you don't have all of the ones they call for, just use another one. I mean, I've got tons and tons of them, and I didn't have this one, so I just used one that I thought would be cool. So we're going to try a new one. It's called Geometric 7. So I've got my no-show mesh in my hoop, And I am going to be using an 8x8 hoop. Since I have a bigger machine, I am going to use the 8x8 hoop instead of altering the designs. But again, I'm going to put the links to the software that I would recommend and my video in the description below this video, so that you would know how to do this little procedure. It's not hard at all. Okay, so let's get our geometric 7. So the first thing we're going to do is bring up our quilting design. So let's go over here and get our quilting design here. And I've got lots of Kimberbell quilting designs, so I thought, well, something has to work. So this is geometric 7. I just thought it looked cool. So what they did is they had like one that looked sort of like fall Thanksgiving-y, and then the other one was more of a like a shape that I thought was cool. And I just thought this geometric one was cool. So we're just going to try that one. I'm sure it'll be just fine. All right, let's see here. So they do 2 of each. I have to be very slow, otherwise everything goes to the bottom. So this was geometric 7, I thought would be cool. And this is on page 6 of the instructions. So I'm going to go get my embroidery file. And these are going to be block by block. Remember, we're doing block by block, and they have the batting lines in them. If you choose clear blue tiles, it'll just be basically the quilting. So we need those batting lines and all that. So we're going to be doing block by block designs. Okay, so I got my PESs here. And these have kind of like hexagons. I just thought it was kind of a neat shape, so we're going to do that. And it says to get the 6x6 design. So remember, when it's a 6x6 design, it is actually going to be 6.5 by 6.5, the design. So when I touch this and bring it up on my screen, we're going to set that. You can see up here that it says 6.5 by 6.5, and it's steps 3 and 4 that cause it to be bigger like that. So just go ahead in that software and take out steps 3 and 4. You'll still be able to get your batting cut, lay your fabric down, tape it down, and then do the quilting, and it'll just be fine. Okay. All right, so we're going to add, and then let's see, we're going to go get our Harvest, or Autumn Harvest is what it's called. Harvest. So let's see, mini quilts, here's the ones we need. We need November. Can you believe we're doing November already? Wow. November. All right, so we're going to do this one. Because they do fit in a 5x7 hoop, just the design. So, because we're going to get the turkey. Okay, and we're going to set him. All right, I think, and then it says in the instructions that the designs are centered on each other, so they automatically in our Brother Baby lock machines will come up centered. So that's already centered. That looks good. So yes, he is going to be sitting on his tail, so he's sideways in the hoop here. All right, so I think we're good. I think we're going to hit embroidery, and I think we're ready to start. All right, so I'm going to get my batting here. Our first step of our quilting is always, of course, the placement line for the batting. So let me get my batting up here. I've got white thread in my needle, and I've just got regular bobbin thread in the bobbin. And we're going to sew step number 1, which is going to be the placement line for our batting. I am using Hobbs 80-20. It's a 80% cotton, 20% polyester, so it's got a little bit more loft to it. I like this batting because it's soft, and it also has more loft. You see the quilting a little bit better, I think, with it. So I've been using this. This is what I use to quilt with, and I really like it for these two. It's not too stiff. All right. Again, I've got my 8x8 hoop because I do have a hoop big enough on my Luminaire to do this without having to take the lines out. Yeah, I got around having a small machine for a long time, so I'm going to place my batting, and then step number 2 is going to tack my batting down. I've got my scissors ready here to trim. But I got around having a small machine for a very long time because I also had an older one when I started, and it didn't allow me to like curve letters or anything like that, or bring in more than one item at a time. Most of even the smaller machines do that now. So I got software early on so I could bring in a design, and then I could add lettering to it, like above and below the design and stuff like that. So, and then I could resize things, and then I could actually split them as well so that they would fit in my smaller machine. So that is something, you know, software is a is a good thing, because then if you do have a smaller machine, it's once you get the hang of the software, you can get around having a small machine. For a long time, I did for probably 4 or 5 years. All right. And it taught me a lot about the software too, which is good, the splitting function and stuff like that. So it was really cool. I learned a lot from it. All right, so we're going to trim our batting close to the stitches. Maybe. There we go. I'm trying not to get my house dirty. I've just put my house up for sale. I don't want to get my house all dirty, so I have to clean every day. So I'm trying to be very neat when I'm sewing in here so I don't get everything dirty. Okay, so then step number 3 in all of the quilting designs is the placement line for the fabric, and that's the one that makes it 6.5 by 6.5. So this is one of the ones that you would eliminate if you have a smaller machine, because you wouldn't have this. You just have to put your fabric down over the batting, kind of center it as best you can, and you won't be able to tack it down, because the next one that goes around is the tack down for the fabric. Well, so what I do is I just tape the fabric down all the way around the hoop or up in the corners, just to hold it in place while it quilts it, and then it goes into the quilting. So I mean, it works just fine. All right, so let's get our background here. This is going to be, and I do have shape flex on the back of all of these fabrics, so the shape flex is on this one. Looks like I've got lint on the back here. All right, so we'll get this centered in here the best we can. But if you have an 8x8 hoop, it makes it easier just to use that. So whichever works for you. All right, so we're going to tack this down. So this is step number 4, tacks it down. Sometimes I have to hold it a little bit so it doesn't... Oh, I got a cat hair. Imagine that, huh? You always have cat hairs and everything. Okay. All right, so then step number 5, as usual, is the quilting. So I'm going to go ahead and quilt this. I'm using my white I like to quilt with kind of matching threads, so it doesn't like jump out at you with the fabrics. So these fabrics are all kind of soft, like grays and that kind of thing. So I didn't want my quilting to like really show a lot. So okay, so we're going to do our quilting. And this is step number 5, and then we'll come back and we'll be ready to start the actual design. Okay, so we got it all quilted, and it has this little pattern on it. I think that's cool, kind of that hexagon pattern. Just wanted to try something different. And the next step then, and this is on page 6 of the instructions, is the placement line for the turkey. So I went ahead and put in my darker gray, because that's the one that matches my fabric here. There's also shape flex on the back of this. I don't know that you'd have to put shape flex on it, but I think the reason they did is that there's quite a lot of stitching on the turkey. There's like some floral pattern on there, so I think that's why they did that, just to give it a little more stability. So I'm going to go ahead and place this down, leave that gray thread in there. Now this one does tell us not to trim it yet. So we're going to stitch it down, but we're not going to trim it. So the step number 2 says stitch the turkey tack down line. Do not trim the fabric at this time, because we're going to put all those flowers in there, and sometimes it'll pull away from the stitching because there's quite a lot of stitching, I think. So we're going to go ahead and put the white back in for step number 3, and it's going to do all that decorative stitching in the turkey. Get my white ready here. So we won't trim yet. We're going to trim a little bit later here. But I think that's why they put the shape flex on, just to give it some stability. Sorry, I dropped my thread on the floor. All right, so let's get the gray out of here. And we're going to put the white back in. And this is going to be that flower detail that's in the turkey. I thought these were really kind of neat. I kind of liked the gray. It was different with the bright colors with it. So we're going to stitch our flowers, and this is step number 3, and then we'll come back and then we're going to trim. Okay, so there's all those pretty, oh, that's really pretty, isn't it, on the gray? I like the white flowers on there. So now we're going to trim this. Might have to get my glasses. Everything's, just a second here, I got to grab my glasses. It's very matchy. Just dark enough. Sometimes I have trouble with very matchy threads and fabrics. All right, let's see here. So we're going to trim close to the stitches, it says. And I think it was good putting the shape flex on there because there's a lot of stitches in that actually. Now you want to be pretty close, I think, on this because it looks like it's a decorative stitch that's going to be over the top instead of a satin stitch, the way it looked to me. So you want to be fairly close to your stitches. I think it went around a couple times and did some small stitches to hold everything down for you. This is going to be neat. Yeah, I wasn't sure when I first saw this with all the grays, but you know, it's kind of different. And I thought, let's give it a try. I was thinking about doing more traditional colors, and then I thought, let's just give it a whirl and see what happens. I like these soft colors. Boy, he's a kind of a detailed little guy, isn't he? Look at his head. He's getting up to his beak here. Let's see how I do. He's got a little beak here. All right, so let's see. Get him around. Better get a little closer there. Sometimes it's hard to get close enough. So if you pull up a little bit on the fabric, it stretches up just a little and it lets you get closer. Because you like to get close for those decorative stitches. You don't want to be too far away. And it's sometimes a little harder to trim and get close with the shape flex on there because, you know, there's a little more, you know, bulk to the fabric then. But I can see why they put it on with all the, there was a lot of stitches in there. All right, getting around here. Sorry, it's taking me a little bit. Figured I'd just trim it on camera. I must be getting close here. Okay, got a little closer there. It looks pretty good. All right, so there's our turkey. All right, so then the next step is going to be with the same color. We're going to leave the gray in, and it's going to do a decorative outline, and I think it's going to do his, oh, he's got little feet, so it's going to do his feet too. So I'm going to, whoops, I'm sorry, I'm going to put my gray back in, not my white. Need the gray for the that matches our fabric. That's a darker gray. So put that in. It's going to do his feet, and then it's going to do the decorative stitching. All right, off we go here. He's going to do his feet first, and then it's going to do that decorative stitching, and then we'll come back and we're going to talk about the next step because I was reading in here and I was wondering why they were doing this. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so we got our decorative stitch around here. He's got feet now. That's always good for our turkey here. We got to have feet on him. And so the next step has an interesting instruction, and I hadn't seen this until I just read it just a few minutes ago. So I'm going to switch over to my red thread. So this is the sentiment is the next piece. So it's going to say Autumn Harvest at the top, and then it's going to have some lettering at the bottom. So according to the instructions, it tells you to wind a bobbin of the red thread that matches this red thread or whatever color you're using, and put the matching thread in the bobbin. I generally do not do this when they tell me to do this with just regular stitching like this because my machine is well adjusted, and I don't have like white bobbin thread coming up. I'm using the appropriate bobbin case in my machine. I have a Brother Luminaire, so I'm using my tight bobbin case because I'm using pre-wound bobbins. If you're winding your own bobbins, you'd be using the standard bobbin case, using the proper thread. So if you have the right bobbin thread, the right bobbin case in your machine, you really shouldn't have to change to a matching color to do lettering. I never have had to, and so we're going to go for this. So this I just put in my red thread, and I'm going to go for it because I really don't think I'm going to have any problem with white thread coming through. So this is small lettering, but I really don't feel like there's going to be a problem because I've never had any problems in the past. If you feel like your machine will pull up the bobbin thread, please, by all means, put in the red thread. So we're going to see what this is going to look like at the end here. I'm sure it'll be fine. And it's going to take a little while to stitch out. So it's still got about 2,000, almost 2,500 stitches to stitch. A lot of lettering. So I'll come back with, and then I'll show it to you close because I really don't think there's going to be a problem with any white showing. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so we got all the letters done. I've got a few more jump clips to do, but I'm going to hold this up. So, like I said, if your machine is properly adjusted, you're using the correct bobbin thread in your machine, I don't think you're going to have any trouble sewing this without, and I just use white bobbin thread. So if I turn this over, I just use my regular white bobbin thread. And so I didn't have any trouble. But you do have to use, you know, the right bobbin case, the right bobbin thread for your machine. It's very important for your tension to be correct. And if your tension is correct on your machine, you shouldn't have any trouble. So anyway, we're done. There we go. I got to finish doing some jump clips down here yet because the letters are pretty small. But it looks really good. So I think I like that one very much. So now the next one is going to be more applique. So we're going to do the gourd block. So give me a few minutes to get set up for that. And we're going to move on to the gourd block. Okay, so we're going to move on to the gourd block. And this one is going to have quite a little bit more applique in it. So this one's really pretty. It's got some of the gold leaves and the gray leaves. I think this will be really pretty. So this one is also going to be the same size. It's 6.5. It's going to end up being 6 by 6, but the design will be 6.5 by 6.5. And I also didn't have this one. So this one was Thanksgiving 3. But I chose one that had some pumpkins in it because I can see the pumpkins in it. And I had one called Autumn 2 that had pumpkins. So we're just going to choose a different design here. So I have my 8x8 hoop back in here with my no-show mesh. And we're going to go in and get our quilting designs. So let's see here. This is, I'm going to get Autumn 2 because that one had some pumpkins. And I thought that would be a nice one for this. Again, we're going to do block by block. So remember, with these kind of designs, we're doing block by block because we're going to sew them together after they're quilted. And we need the 6 by 6. Let's see, there's 4 by 4, 4 by 6. Here is the 6 by 6. And this one has pumpkins on it. So I think that'll look nice. We'll set that one. Okay, and then the next, then we need the gourd block. So I'm going to hit add down here. And we're going to go to mini quilts. Can you believe we're doing the November one already? Oh my gosh. And then we're going to get the gourd. So the gourd's here. And again, this one's going to come up sideways, which is fine. And it comes in, it says to be centered. So it automatically in the Brother Baby Lock machine centers on the other design. So we're good there. And there's our gourd. Isn't that going to be pretty? Okay, so we got that, and I think that's what we need to do. And of course, we're going to start with our quilting. So I'm going to hit embroidery here. I'm going to do step number 1, which is going to be my placement line for my quilting. Get that going first. Let me find my batting here. Got white thread in the needle because I wanted to keep it the same quilting as the other one. Let me find my gourd pieces here. We got a whole bunch of little pieces for this one. Bunch of yellows and grays, and there's a whole bunch of little leaves and stuff in this one. So here's my background piece, and it does have shape flex on the back. This is going to be a different background. There's I think there's yeah, shape flex on all of these. All right, so let's get our batting up here. We're going to stitch that down, and then we're going to trim it. I just like to use the little chunks of batting. Saves a lot of time on cutting. Even when you cut the batting, you still have to trim it because it's still a little bit big, so you still have to trim it. So I figured I could just put a big piece up here instead. Saves a lot of time. I don't trim like when I do borders or sashings either. All right. So we're going to go around it twice, and then we're going to trim. Sorry, I keep clearing my throat. This is the time of year. I think everybody tells me it's ragweed that's so bad in the fall, and I've been sleeping with the windows open because it's been so cool and stuff outside, and then I wake up every morning and I have to clear my throat a million times. All right, so we're going to trim around here. So this one's going to be really pretty. I was actually really looking forward to this because it's just a little different. It's kind of out of my comfort zone color-wise. It's just a different color scheme, and I thought, I kind of like it. Get this all trimmed. All right. Now, again, this is one of the steps that you would remove if you had some software, if you have a smaller machine. This is the 2, 3, and 4 that are going to make it a little bit too big for that 6x10 hoop. But if you just take these out and just lay your fabric down over the batting and do the quilting, it'll be just fine. So, but I am going to do my number 3 is going to be my placement line for my fabric. I do have my shape flex on the back of this fabric, my background fabric as well. Okay, we're going to get this get it centered as best we can here. Like that. And then step number 4, we'll tack it down, and then step number 5 will be the quilting. And then it looks like we're going to, this one we're also going to need our felt, our plaid felt. So I'm going to get that out of my package here. I didn't trim it down to the sizes they said. I'll just hold it up. It's fine. If you'd like to trim it, you can trim it. And let's see, I think we're going to actually start with the yellows, it looks like. Oh, there's some leaves first. We're going to stitch some leaves first. So then step number 5 here is going to be the quilting. So it's going to do the little pumpkins. And I'll be back when the pumpkins are over, and then we will start. It's going to be page 7 where the actual instructions of the block start. Okay, so there's our pumpkins. You can see a nice outline of the pumpkin on the white there. And the next step is going to be the first step in the actual design on page 7. And it's going to be stitch the leaves. So there's some leaves that are going to be stitched in with the, it looks like the light gray. I'm looking at it. Yeah, the light gray. So I've put my light gray into my needle. Got to put this back in here just a second. Put the light gray thread in my needle, and we're going to stitch some leaves. And then I'll be back, and I think we're going to start some of the gold. There's a little bit of stitching on gold leaves, and then we will do some applique. Okay, second step on page 7 is some gold leaves. So I've got my gold thread in my needle, and I'm going to stitch out these leaves, and then it looks like we're going to move on to some of the gold leaves, the applique. Okay, so I've got my gold leaves here. So the next step, step number 3 in the instructions, is going to be the placement line for the gold leaves. So we're going to have, and they're going to do both of these pieces at the same time. So you might want to tape it down. Let's take a look at it once we get it stitched out here and see how it goes. There's a little, like the little pumpkin stem up here, and then there's a leaf down a little further, and then there's something over here. So we'll see. It may be fine because the foot does come up when it moves from one place to another. So if you watch the foot here, so that's what's important about the taping. So I think we might be okay without taping, but If you feel more comfortable taping, go ahead. I don't think I'm going to, but I will check. I'll hold my fabric to make sure it's okay. But I think the 3x3 piece goes, this is all got shape flex too. The bigger piece goes at the top here because there's two pieces here. So we're going to put this piece here like this. And then the square piece goes down here to accommodate that leaf there. So they just had you do, I don't know, I think I am going to tape at least in the center there just to keep me from catching that. So I think it'll be okay otherwise. Just going to put a little tape over the center there just to hold that down. Okay. So then we're going to do, it looks like it's going to start down here. And this is step number 4. Oops, what did it do? Just a minute here. Oh. I just had a new spring on my machine. I am actually going to do, let's do this. Let me show you what's happening here. It's telling me to move to a bigger frame, which I know it doesn't need. But I just had a new spring put over here on my flipper, but it makes me wonder if I might need a new little board in here because it's done this a couple of times. So I'm just going to turn this off because I want to make sure that everything's lined up correctly. So I'll just show this on the camera. I'm going to turn the machine off. I didn't do anything. All I did was take the hoop out. I'm going to turn the machine off. I'm going to turn it back on again so that it resets the size and everything, because sometimes if this happens, this is a good way to just make sure everything's lined up. I want to make sure it's not, messed up. So we're going to do that. Wasn't sure because my little spring had broken in my little flipper, that little flipper that comes down and holds your hoop in. Okay to recall and resume. Absolutely. So we're going to hit okay. So everything should be lined back up again. All right, so now we'll put this back in and see if it's happy or not. Let's put this in. This hoop is also a little tight. So I hold my, let me go back over here. I hold the thing with my finger back here because this hoop is just a little tight. So, all right, so let's try this again. All right, so now it's going to start, not sure where it's going to, I think it's going to go down here. So let's see what goes on. All right, so it's going to do our tack down lines on the leaves. With any luck at all, everything's lined up. And you notice it didn't say to put it in a bigger hoop. So I bet that when I put this in, it moved just a little bit. Because that can happen. If your hoops are tight, you can slightly move that and not even realize it. And I've got a couple of hoops that are quite tight. So see how it raised the foot to go up over that. So then it was nice to have this taped down though, just in case. So it's going to do the little leaf over there, and then it's going to go up and do the little stem up here. And then we'll trim these, and then we're going to go on. I think it's the gray leaves are next. So we're going to do some gray ones too. Got this big long string in there. Okay, so now we're going to do our trimming before we go on to the next leaves. Okay, get this off of here. Might need that again. Pull this out. Again, like I said, my hoop is a little bit tight, and that may have just moved a little bit when I pushed it in. So we'll trim these off. I was surprised they didn't do just like one big piece of fabric, but you would waste kind of a chunk in the middle there. Sometimes they do just do one piece of fabric though. I'm going to trim these close to the stitches. And this is in step number 4, just so you know, on page 7. And we'll do this one. Here's the little stem up here. And this has the shape flex on it. Okay, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm just trimming along the edges here. Get that. Get this all off. I might keep that. I might need that little piece for something. All right, so we're going to trim this one. Looks good. All right. Get them all trimmed. Now I think the next one we're going to do, yes, the other applique first. So we'll do the gray. And that is the light gray for the leaves. Let me grab my light gray, which is called pearl gray. Do that next. All right. Got a bunch of little strings on there. We'll get our placement line on here. So this is step number 5. And then we're going to find our gray pieces. So these are the 2 pieces we're going to be using next. For this. And let's see, again, they're going to do the same thing. So I think the smaller one goes over on the top and this one goes down here. So. So I think the longer one goes over here. So they're going to do the same thing. I think these will be fine without taping. So I'm just going to put this one over this one. And I'm going to put the shorter one up here because it kind of goes right here. Okay. And then the next step will be the tack down. So we'll do the tack down, and I think there might be, I think they're going to do the red next. Yes. So then we'll switch over to our red thread. Burgundy colored red thread, and do the red leaves. They usually do all the applique first. And I think the last applique piece though is actually that gourd, you know, that flannel, or the felt I should say. So that they're going to do a bunch of the stitching before they do that. All right, so then we'll trim these. I think this is going to be really cool. I think I'm going to like the color organization. I wasn't sure about it, you know, but I think I'm going to like it. So I like these soft colors. And then you have a couple of strong colors in there, you know. All right, so we're going to trim these close to the stitches, maybe. Didn't do very well on that one, did I? So get this in here. I knew this one was going to have a bunch of applique in it. The 2 of the blocks have quite a lot of applique, and one didn't have, like, the other 2 just had like 1 piece. So there's quite a lot of applique in the 2, like the pumpkin and the gourd ones, because they had all these leaves to do. All right, so there's one. Okay, got that. Give me a second. I'm going to have to pull this out again. Hopefully it won't move. I'll hang on to it so it doesn't move. My 8x8 hoop and my 8x12 hoop are very tight, and I try to keep them clean. So if you keep the little receiver thing clean on the hoop, I cleaned it off, and then it usually works better. Okay. All right, so we got that one trimmed. So now I think we're going to move over to the red thread. I'll hang on to this so it won't move. Okay. So the next one, and this is on page 8, so I'm going to turn it to the top of page 8 here. And this is going to be, yes, for the red leaves. So I'm going to put my red in and do the red leaves. Kind of a burgundy red. I just matched my fabric. So again, when you're picking your colors, you know, just pick out your fabrics first and get, you know, what you want for fabric, and then pick your colors to go with them. All right, so we're going to do our placement lines. So this is step 7 and step 8 on the top of page 8. And then I need to find my red fabric. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Here's my red fabric. And mine has just a little bit of a fleck in it. I think I might have used this on one of my Christmas quilts, but it's kind of pretty. I think I used, oh yeah, this is the one I used for my Claudia Donnell, Claudia's Creations one that's called 'Tis the Season. All right, so then we'll put this on. And I think these are both the same size, yeah. All right, so then we're going to put these over here. So we'll put one here. And they're going to do them both at the same time, so we've got to get this one up here. Just make sure, and I might put a little piece of tape over the middle of that one too, because they're kind of, we don't want it to catch here. So I'm just going to put some tape over the center here. There we go. All right. Hopefully I didn't get it in the way of the stitching. Just kind of watch it. So we'll do the tack down and then we'll do the trimming. I think this will be pretty. I didn't have plain colors. I didn't have a completely plain gold and I didn't have a completely plain burgundy, so I thought, well, we'll put a little teeny bit of print in there. A little gold flack, and let's see what comes after this. We'll look and see what comes after this. Oh, then we're going to start doing all of the outlines and stuff. So I'll probably do a bunch of that off camera because there's just a whole bunch of stitching from 9 through, my goodness, 9 through 15. There's a whole bunch of just stitching. So I think you guys can all handle that. And I'll just do a bunch of it and I'll come back when that's all done. So let's get this off of here and we'll trim. We're going to trim this. Let's see what we can do here. I'll have to pull this out though because I can't turn it. Yeah, this one's really stiff. So I've noticed that this one's a little dirty again. So I clean them with like a little rubbing alcohol so that it cleans like any, like residue or anything off, because when they sit around, they get dusty and then you push them in and out. And so I do clean them off and that really helps a lot. I just haven't done this one for a while. And my 8x12 does that. I have 2 8x12s. One of them does it and one of them doesn't. So I don't know why. All right, so there's one. Let's get this one. Then we'll start the satin stitching. So it's going to be a whole bunch of satin stitching. This one had quite a lot of stitches in it. It had almost 16,000 stitches in it. So most of it's going to be in this next section. And I think I'll just do that all off camera so you can just pause me and you can do all your stitching because there's just a whole bunch of, stitching now. Give me a second to get it trimmed around here though. All right. You do want to be pretty close. I think these are all satin stitches though. All right, so there's the red. All right, so the next step on page, oops, helps if I turn it right side up, doesn't it? To put it back in, there you go. And I'll hang on back here because it's tight. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do off camera, I'm going to do steps 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So 9 is going to be my gold to go around the gold pieces. 10 and 11 are going to be the gray, the light gray. And 12, 13, and 14 are going to be my burgundy. And then 15 is going to be my gold again. So just go ahead and follow the color numbers or whatever colors you chose to use with your fabrics. And then we'll be back to do the last applique step together. Okay, so I got all of the number, what is it? We started with number 9 and I sewed down through number 15 and it did all the pretty decorative stitches and the satin stitches. Isn't that pretty? So now we're ready to do the last little bit, which is going to be applique for the gourd. So the next step, which is step number 16 in the, is in the instructions on page 8, is the placement line. So I put in my yellow, because we're going to do yellow thread and for both the placement and the tack down. And then we're going to put our fabric up here. Now this is going to be directional, so we want to try to make it as straight as possible. We're going to lay this down, and I didn't trim mine because I thought I could just lay it down. So I'm going to pull this out though so I can see a little bit. And I want to make sure that this is pretty straight, you know, because with this being like plaid, we want to make sure that it's not crooked in here. So let's see if I can get it kind of straight. I'm using the line over here to help me. So I think I'm going to pull it this way just a teeny little bit. All right, and then we're going to leave the yellow in to do the tack down line. Now this is going to be raw edge applique. So let's make sure we're okay. I think we're okay here. Oops, I might have gone a little too far. Just a second. So my line's right here, so I want to make sure that's the biggest line, the whitest point. So I think that'll be okay. All right, so I'm just going to hold this on here. We're going to leave the yellow in, and I think it's going to do some decorative stitching too. So it's going to tack it down. Going to do a triple stitch, and I think it's going to do some decorative stitches too. But I wanted to make sure it was fairly straight so that it didn't, the plaid didn't look crooked, crooked on the block. So we'll see how Jan did here. Hopefully I got it straight. Looks pretty good. Do our tack down. I was a little skimpy over there. I've just barely made it, but I think it's okay. I wondered if this was felt or what it was, but it is felt. All right, so it's going to go up over the top, and then I think it's going to do those little decorative pieces too. So I might turn the video off for a second. So it's gone around the outside edge, and now it's going to do these little decorative things. So I might turn the video off for a few moments while it finishes the little decorative, and then we're going to do the trimming. Okay, so we've got the pumpkin little details done, and then we're going to trim this. So this is a raw edge applique. So when we trim this, you want to make sure that it looks pretty smooth along the edges, you know, because we're not going to have this covered up. So I'm going to stay about 1/8 of an inch, and I like to tip my scissors towards me when I do this kind of trimming, because then it keeps things flatter. So I'm going to probably trim about 1/8 of an inch away from the, maybe a little less from the stitching. So hopefully, so I always take my time when I do this. And if you kind of tip your scissors towards you, like I've got these Ginger curvy scissors, so if I kind of tip them towards me, they keep a nice flat edge then. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so cute. I wasn't sure when I first saw the colors. I thought, oh gosh, but you know, really they are going to be neat. And there's some yellows and some reds that give it color, you know. And I like that soft, the soft grays in there. This felt's kind of cool. I don't know if I've ever seen felt that's like this before, plaid. This was in the embellishment kit, so I don't know if you'd be able to find that, but I've never seen it. If anybody finds it somewhere, let me know. This plaid felt. Maybe they do have it, and I don't look for felt that often, so maybe they do have it, and I just didn't realize. All right, so I'm getting around here. Take your time with the trimming. Make it look nice and smooth. I have one little spot over here I need to fix, though. All right. There's a little spot over here that's not quite the way I want it. So let's see if I can trim it up just a little bit. This was a little tough because of those leaves there. There, that looks better. Okay. Oh my gosh, isn't that pretty? Look at all those bright colors. There's still a little spot here I think I'll work on a little bit more. But we'll trim these, and I'll work on that just a little bit more. I've got a little spot right there I need to fix, but oh my gosh, isn't that pretty? Look at that. I just love all those bright colors, and the soft colors and the bright colors just makes the bright colors just really pop. Okay, so give me a minute. I'm going to, we're going to trim our 2 blocks, and I just need to move my camera, and then we'll move on to video number 2 and do a couple more blocks. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we're going to trim our blocks. Now all of 4 of these blocks that we're going to do are going to be trimmed to 6.5 inches. So I have my 6.5 by 6.5 inch orange pop ruler out here. And I'm going to use my little basting line along here to help me. If you don't have the basting line, like if you had to remove that to get it in your hoop, what I do then is I kind of mark the center of it. So, and there's some little arrows here to help me get it centered. And then you can just kind of eyeball it and center it in your hoop. That works just fine too. Eyeballing works really great. So, but I'm just using those little lines to help me. So I'm gonna, got my rotary cutter here, and remember I'm left-handed, so I'm going to probably be trimming the opposite of a lot of you. I'm going to hold this down, and I'm going to start in a little ways from the corner. Remember, we're cutting on the inside. I'm going to pull back to the corner and push forward. I'm going to turn it around. I'm using my Martelli roundabout, and it is so easy to use when it comes to cutting, because then everything stays put and it actually moves. A lot of the cutting mats, the rotating mats, just they stick and they don't move, and this one has a Lazy Susan on it. I am just a little off though. Just a second here. There we go. It slid a little bit on me. So I'm going to start in, pull back, and push forward. All right, so there's our first block. So that's 6.5 by 6.5. Got that one done. That one looks nice. Then we're going to do, this one turned out so pretty. Look at all the pretty colors. I like those. I mean, it really makes those bright colors pop, doesn't it? With those softer grays on there. So we're going to do the same thing. Going to kind of get it lined up. You can use those little tack down lines to help you. All right, and then I'm going to slide over here, do the same thing. I'm going to go in, pull back to the corner, and push up, and that really helps me get those corners cut, because I was always having trouble with my corners. So I start in, pull back, and push forward. But the rotating mat really helps doing these, because then it's easier to hang on to things. Okay, so there's that one. Oh my gosh, look at there. That one's so pretty. So that's the Gourd block. And here's the Autumn Harvest, I think they just called it Autumn block, but Autumn Harvest, isn't that pretty? And they have just slightly different prints, and then I put different quilting designs on them. So, okay, so now we're ready to do, we'll move on to video number 2, and we're going to do, it's a pumpkin block. What do they call the other one? Pumpkin block and the thanks block. So we're going to do 2 blocks in the next video. So thank you very much for joining me for video 1 of the November Kimberbell Mini Quilt. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up on YouTube. It helps me. And also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's free. And that way you'll know when I have more videos coming out. It'll come up and let you know that there's videos available, new videos available. So thanks everybody, and I'll see you in video number 2. We're doing a couple more blocks in that video. Thanks everybody.